Hello Tech Pros, episode 162.
Reward your failures with success, and don't let your failures be in vain. Let them count for something.
Welcome to the podcast where I chat with professionals who are getting the job done using technology 7 days a week. Each week we start with Motivation Monday. Tuesday is about productivity, Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and Sunday, being unplugged. All right, let's get started. Hello, Tech Pros. This is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to introduce our featured guest today, Andreas Jones. Happy Monday, Andreas.
Hey, thank you for having me, Chad.
You bet. Are you motivated to get this week started?
I am highly motivated to get going.
Awesome. Let's do it. Andreas Jones is the founder of Combat Business Coaching, #1 best-selling author of Business Leader Combat, marketing strategist, business growth expert, contributor at the Huffington Post, and an Army combat veteran. Andreas works with small and medium-sized companies to help them build meaningful businesses so that they can have more profit, more fans, and more freedom. Andreas, first of all, before we get started on today's episode, I want to thank you so much for your service to our country, keeping us all safe. I appreciate the sacrifice that you and your family have made for all of us.
It's my honor, Chad. It's my honor.
Awesome. So, let's see, man. You're doing so much stuff. You got a coaching business. You're a author, marketing strategist. Man, you're doing so much. We'll probably get into this throughout the episode, but how do you find a way to balance it all?
How do I find a way to balance it all? Oh man, that's a great question. I guess the number one thing I do is prioritize. As you said, I have quite a bit going on. So I prioritize, and I recognized through hard times that I can't do it all by myself. So I have a team around me that helps me going and helps me stay on track. And I think if I can share anything with anyone today in business and life is that you can't do anything meaningful by yourself.
Yeah, it's tough. It's so tough. I was always that really shy, introverted kid that struggled with social anxiety, and I wanted to do whatever I was doing by myself because I had this fear of judgment from other people. And so I tried to be extremely highly effective and extremely efficient with my work and with my time, and by like studying very arcane things that nobody else could understand and applying them. And when I finally had something working, it was like, look, I made this. And people were like, yeah, that's kind of cool, but we're over here doing this awesome stuff, which is more meaningful to more people. And I'm like, gosh, I need to like reach out and build a network and start getting connected with people in order to, like you said, have that bigger impact.
Absolutely.
Cool. So, Motivation Monday here on Hello Tech Pros, we're all about hitting this week, this brand new week, with a high level of enthusiasm and a high level of motivation and helping those around us do the same thing. But you know what? We're all human. We all have these periods in our life where just something's not going right or everything's not going right. And so I always ask my guests, what was the one time in your life or a specific time in your life when you were not motivated, and really tell us that story about where you were, what happened, and then how you got out of it.
Awesome. I think it's a great question. Just a quick PS. It's very emotional for me, so I might take some pauses in there. But
yeah, you bet.
I have to say that moment in time had to be about 9 months into starting my coaching business. And after 9 months, I was reflecting, looking over everything, all the money I've spent, all the marketing, everything. And I only served one client in 9 months. And I got so down, I started to question everything, every decision, everything about the business. Should I be doing this? Is it for me? Am I qualified? Am I good enough? And it was just a everyday, nonstop beating up myself mentally. And it was draining. It was stressing. It also started affecting not only me, but it started affecting the communications with my wife, and that has its own problems with it. So I was in a real bad place because I was so excited about being able to start my business, and then to see 9 months in after spending thousands and thousands of dollars, doing, trying everything, trying to make it work. As in the first year in business, you're just trying to get some footing underneath you, and I wasn't getting the traction that I thought I would get, and I was drained, I was burnt out, unmotivated, on the brink of quitting, and I had a conversation with a buddy of mine, who served in the army with, and I was kind of telling him the situation, and he was like, he just reminded me that in the army, you know, we had our buddies, our battle buddies, that was someone who could help you, um, not go through anything by yourself. And he said, why don't you try to find someone who can help you with the business, someone who has kind of been there, done that. And I started on a search to find that person. I found this one guy, and I sent him 8 emails before I got a reply. So, adding to being burnt out, drained, and stressed out, and just discouraged, trying to reach out to this guy, and I have no replies after 7 tries. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it again. And after the 8th try, I got a response from him, and it was right about in the time of close to Thanksgiving. And so I was able to get him on the phone for 20 minutes. We talked, telling him my situation, and he said it could help me. And then, so running about Thanksgiving Day, at the time, my wife was pregnant, and we went into the hospital on Thanksgiving Day because she had a complication with a pregnancy, and we lost the baby. So not only had to have this business, situation going on where I'm just stressed and discouraged, and it was just nothing was going right for me at this point. My wife, lost her baby on Thanksgiving Day. We had family over, and we were in the hospital the whole day, and so it was a tough time. And so we came home Thanksgiving, and then the next day, Black Friday, the guy called me and he said, "Are you ready to start working with me?" And I was like, I told him what happened, with my wife and the baby. And he paused for a minute and, he apologized and, give his, just, try to encourage me a little bit. And then he said, "Are you still ready to work?" I'm like, I was saying to myself, I'm like, is this dude real? Is this so crazy? Like, I'm telling you, my wife just lost my baby. I'm not in the mindset, and I'm not here right now because this is
Right.
tough. Not only have to be the strength, I have to be strength for my wife because she is, she's going through. So that was the last thing on my mind at that point. But then, he said to me, um, and it was a really powerful moment. He said, I can guarantee you that success is not convenient. And I know this is like the most inconvenient time for you, but this is going to be as good as any time that we can do this. And he said, if you want to work with me, that would have to be today. I'm pretty busy and pretty booked up. And he's is a very successful guy, has multi-million-dollar clients. And so I told him yes. And then in the moment, I said yes, and he told me the cost and everything. I didn't have all the money in one card, so I paid it with 5 different cards, debit cards, credit cards, try to work with this guy because I was like, this was just my last shot to get this business going. And paid with 5 cards. And by the way, I couldn't tell this to my wife at the time because she was just going through. So this
Yeah.
was even me just going off the reservation, financially, and it could have turned out real bad, just to say the
Right.
least, to say the least. And so from that day on, 90 days after that, I'd signed on 12 clients, with the help of this guy helping me get just my business right, please getting me positioned right, and all that good stuff. And just in that moment where and then like a week after a call, then I was like, and I asked him, I was like, why were you so adamant for me to sign up with you that day? And he was like, Because if I let you go, you'd have used the fact that your wife lost the baby as an excuse forever, and it would have been the
Mm.
perfect excuse because it's you know it's as good as an excuse of any you can have. And he said, I I I would not allow you to use that as an excuse to not be successful.
Mm.
And at a point I didn't understand it, but looking back now, it's probably one of the top decisions outside of getting married and some other important things I did in my life. It was one of the top decisions I've made to work with that guy and to get that mentorship to help me with my business. And it was it just wasn't convenient. And I have subscribed to that framework that success is not convenient. And then the second thing he taught me is that once you say yes to your dreams, if you say yes to your dreams once, you got to say yes to it 1,000 times. The first yes is the first step, and that's just crossing that barrier of being in your head and putting in reality. And then there's 1,000 other times you're gonna have to say yes, um, if this is your dream. And I've been doing that. I've been saying yes to plenty of things as you went through my bio. All those opportunities that came up, I had to fight for and said yes to. It cost me. There was a cost to it, and all of those achievements and accomplishments that I have. And if you say yes once, you have to say yes 1,000 more times to your dream. If it's your dream, I mean, what you have to lose by not going after it.
Wow, Andreas, that's such a powerful story and very emotional. My my complete condolences on your loss for your
Thank you.
your
Thank
baby.
you.
I don't know how anyone could just get through that event in and of itself, not even focus on the business, right? Just kind of put the business aside for like 10 seconds here, and just the emotional state of, you've been working on this thing for 9 months, you've been spending thousands of dollars on coaching, on mentoring, on training programs, on trying to market your business and get it up and running, and didn't have a whole lot to show for it but one
Uh-huh.
customer. And then the stress of this family event, tragic family event, is just like, I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, and like, how would I go on is just a regular man, just
Hmm.
living, just like with my wife and my family, and just going on through that event regardless of the business thing. And then to have the nerve of some mentor guy call up and say, okay, well, if you want to do business, it's got to be today. It's like, look, dude, you don't understand the thing that I just went through. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel you. I do understand, but it's got to be today. And that decision to say yes that day, like you said, kind of on the sly, like on the down low, but kind of a little bit behind your wife's back, right, as
Hmm.
she is recovering, and to go out and figure out what kind of credit cards and debit cards you can use to pay for this high-end coaching, and then really put a lot of trust and hope into this thing that it's going to pay off. I mean, I can't
Hmm.
imagine how stressful that must have felt.
Yeah, I'll tell you that those 90 days, it was tough. It was tough. Because not only as I said, not only was I had to be strong for myself, but I had to be strong for my wife. It's a very emotional time for her.
Mm.
With this everything, she started getting stuff for the baby, and it was really tough.
Mm.
And so, trying to manage a business, trying to also, come home and show up for her, be there for her. It was a really tough time, but I would say if I was in that position, I'll say yes again. Um, because it's just that one moment that you need to the breakthrough.
So tell us about the first breakthrough moment that you had. So 90 days later, you had 12 clients. Was there like a one moment when you got like a client or a handful of clients within a short period of time when you're like, aha, this is working, and
Yeah.
I feel like justified for making this decision?
Yeah, so about a month after working with this guy, we revamped the marketing messaging, revamped kind of my web design, and the craziest thing started happening. I started getting calls. People was like, "Oh, I saw your website here. I saw your message here. I saw this here." I was like, oh wow, 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 that's pretty cool to be the hunted and not being the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
hunter. And
Right.
so that was kind of the moment where I got a call. This lady, she just said, I saw your picture here, and she called me, told me that she wanted a business coach, told me her place, and I signed her up the same day to come on in my coaching program. And so it was just that moment where the phone was ringing. I started seeing some tangible returns on what was happening. And, I was like, oh, wow, maybe this was really worth it. And that's what I said again. If I was in that situation, knowing what I know now, I would say yes again, if the outcome was going to be the same, because it was just so much. It was just so much weight that was lifted off my shoulder when I was getting those calls, when I was able to really help people with their business, because I'm really passionate about it, and so to have the opportunity to do it, it was amazing in and of itself.
So it's interesting that you were in this niche where you were providing business coaching, but your business itself, the coaching business was struggling. So you had to find a higher level business coach or a higher level marketers to help you kind of unstick your coaching business so that you could help other people like make progress on their business.
Oh, absolutely! It's the great imposter syndrome that every entrepreneur faces.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just one of the things that comes with being an entrepreneur is that imposter syndrome. We're like, how can I help you while I'm over here struggling?
Right.
And that I have to give credit for that tenacity and that mental toughness. Would have to go to my military training to be able to push through that, to not pay so much attention to that, because that voice was always there, like, you're not good enough, like, you're struggling over here, dude, what you doing? Maybe you need to take some time off, maybe this is not for you. And I had to push through that every day. I still push through it every day. I look in the mirror, there's a guy like, who are you to have all these accomplishments and accolades and all this other stuff? And it's one of the biggest battles any entrepreneur, any person in business faces when you're trying to make a mark. And it's par for the course, and you just have to fight through it day in, day out.
So, Andreas, let's talk about briefly the biggest lessons learned that you took away from your coach and mentor, and then we'll take a break. And then when we come back, we'll talk about the things that you coach your customers on how to improve their business. So let's start with, what was the biggest thing that you learned from this person who really had you step up in this moment and say, you know what, you got to say yes. If you're going to say yes to your business, you got to say yes today.
The biggest thing I learned was that if this is your dream, why would you wait one more day to pursue it?
Mm.
If it's your dream, why would you wait? Okay, there's never there's never a great time to do anything. There's always going to be something come up. There's always going to be some issue. So there's no perfect time. It's just a window that you have to go through. And one of the things that I really learned from him is as the principle of speed to market is just get out there. Get out there. Don't be afraid. Do it while you're scared. Do it even now if you're scared.
So, but in your case, you had already been applying, working on your business for 9 months. Was there something like a specific tactic or a specific rebranding campaign that really made the most difference in here as you were trying to turn yourself around and put your new website and stuff together?
Yeah. So it was a rebranding in my messaging and what my messaging was. Starting out, it was all about me and what I did and all this other good stuff. Everything was about me and not about the actual client's needs, not about their issues, not about their problems that they were facing. So whenever someone would hit my website, they'll just see Andreas, and it was like nothing about the clients and what they're going through. And so that was part of the rebranding process and making sure that my website, my messaging, my social profiles was reflecting how I can solve the problems that we're facing.
Yeah, I see that very commonly. I mean, I've struggled with that for many, many months as I'm putting Hello Tech Pros together and putting the podcast together, right? Which is kind of telling the story of me, but also serving the stories of my guests.
Hmm.
But ultimately, right, thinking about the impact that it's going to make on the listener, right? Because right now, I'm meeting you, you're meeting me, we're both sharing stories, but there's someone else on the other end of this call, right, that is listening to this that we both want to affect, and we both want to like transform their life or transform their career. And so I
Hmm.
think it can get lost sometimes, right? When we're thinking about doing the business, we're working on the business, we're working on us. Like you said, we're trying to change our internal mindset. We're trying to fight that imposter syndrome. Sometimes, at least I feel like I have to pump myself up so much that it almost feels like I'm coming across as, look at me, I can do this,
Hmm.
instead of, hey, I know you are struggling with XYZ. Here's how I can help.
Absolutely. That's 100% true.
Cool. So, Andreas, in just a moment, let's talk about maybe some of the biggest mistakes or the biggest challenges that you see in your clients' businesses and what you do to coach them through that. But first, let's take a quick break and thank our sponsors. This episode of Hello Tech Pros is sponsored by Minio Cloud Storage. Minio is a cloud object storage server for developers and DevOps written in Go. The Go programming language is the emerging language of choice for modern cloud infrastructure projects, and it allows Minio to be highly concurrent and lightweight. Minio is Amazon S3 compatible, built with microstorage architecture in mind, but at its heart, Minio is simple, scalable, and supported by a passionate developer and user community. In episode 89 of Hello Tech Pros, I talked with A.B. Periasamy, one of the founders of Minio, about the importance of community support and recruiting software developers who are as passionate about their product's code as artists are of their art. Check out that episode at hellotechpros.com/89 and check out Minio Cloud Storage at minio.io. That's minio.io. Okay, we're back with Andreas Jones. Andreas is the founder of Combat Business Coaching, the #1 best-selling author of Business Leader Combat. He's a marketing strategist, a business growth expert. He's been in Huffington Post. He's been a veteran in the Army, he told us the story of 9 months into starting his coaching business and only serving one customer and spending thousands of dollars on coaching for himself. He really had a lot of self-doubt on, can this thing work? And then a huge tragedy in his family life. And the day after, being in the hospital and losing the precious baby, his mentor and coach called up and said, okay, if you want to do work with me, you're going to have to pay a lot of money and you're going to have to start working today. And that was a tough time for anybody to get through and to choose that. But Andreas said, you know what? If you say yes to your dreams, then you have to say yes 1,000 times. We've been talking about how the speed to market and focusing on your customers' needs is so critically important. So Andreas, now that you've refocused, you've rebranded, and you're helping customers, what are some of the common problems that you see in your customers' businesses? And what are some of the solutions that you help them come up with?
All right, so I guess the #1 problem that I come across in my clients' business is actually their messaging. And for 70 to 80% of businesses with website and messaging, it's not correctly addressing the problems or the solutions they provide. It's very vague. And it doesn't give their prospects any inclination to want to say, I want to know more. And so that's incredibly important with messaging, to understand the psychology of your prospects. And so that's one of the biggest issues that I come across, is just understanding their target audience to make sure that their messaging and what they're putting out there answers those issues and solutions they face.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tricky bit, right? Because you don't want to have information overload. You don't want to provide so much information that really, as they say, you show how the sausage is made inside the sausage factory, right? Because that
Uh-huh.
can scare a lot of potential customers off, and they'd be like, "Oh, okay, that's I don't understand. There's way too much information here." But at the
Hmm.
same time, you don't want to be vague and just say, "Hey, trust me, Chad will solve all your problems.
Yeah.
Just I'll take PayPal, I take money order, I'll take cash, but as soon as the check clears, then all your problems and worries will be taken care of." No, that's a little too vague and that's a little too disingenuous. So
Hmm.
how do we find that happy medium? How do we find the right messaging for our business?
So, how to find the right messaging? First, you have to understand your customer, what your clients are looking for. Um, if you take a look at most psychologist or therapist websites, they have about 20 different services they do. And this is something I worked on with a client. And someone goes on their website and they see 20 different services. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know, what does this guy do?"
Mm-hmm. Right.
Versus if someone has a child that needs a child psychologist, they don't need to see that you have 1,000 blog posts about having a happy home or whatnot. They need to see, how can you help me with my child who's misbehaving, who's not, who's screaming at all times of night. How do I handle that? And so the opportunity there is to compartmentalize your customer base. If you do provide 20 services, you got to make sure that whenever they hit any medium that you're using, that's been catered to them and not just this broad net of I do 100 different things. And so how you compartmentalize that is, you can use squeeze pages, landing pages to kind of single out that one topic, that one pain point that they're having. And so that's what you're presenting to them instead of a website with 20, 30 different services there that you do provide.
Okay, so we're talking about um, if we do all things for all people, right? If we're a psychologist or we're a coach that helps in a lot of different areas,
Hmm.
right? So let's think business coaching, right? So business coaching, there's all different kinds of business coaches. There's
Yeah.
people who can help with your website and your marketing and your social media and your branding and your pay structures and your e-commerce, and there's just so much stuff. And
Yeah.
if you really are an expert in each one of those areas, you want to show off, right? And you want to be able to help each person with all of those problems. But like you said, it can get overwhelming if a client comes in and they just see all this, all these different options available. It's like, I don't even
Hmm.
know what to buy because there's 20 different things that I could add to my shopping cart, and I don't know
Hmm.
which one I really need. All I know is I want to make more money and I want my business to be more successful, but I'm not
Absolutely.
sure which one of these is going to be the thing that I need to implement like today in order to get
Hmm.
the ball rolling.
Absolutely.
Cool. So sometimes we talk about developing a profile for the customer, like an avatar for the customer,
Hmm.
what they look like, what they sound like, what they act like. Do you have any quick tips for our listeners here on how they can like completely define or encapsulate what exactly a potential customer is looking for, so that they can help like refine that message?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing they would have to do is to understand the problem that they are solving or that they want to solve and want to help with. So understanding that now then gives you a starting point to say, okay, if I'm solving this problem, who normally has this problem? And then that's where you start breaking it down into age, into sex, into demographics. But the key point is to understand what you are solving. And once you understand what you're solving, then you start doing your research to know that, okay, if I help millennials with job search, then you're not going to target people in their 30s and 40s, because that's not your market. That's not the issue you're solving for them. You got to channel your message to between 20 and 30 age range. So it's understanding having clarity around the problem that you're solving, is the starting point to understanding your target audience, to know exactly what they're looking for. and have to make sure that they're a match to the problem that you're solving, and they have the issues that you want to solve.
Awesome. Yeah, good stuff. So it's all about finding that right language. I think you said it just very succinctly right there at the very beginning, is find the right language, just the right language for the right person. Depends on who you're talking to and what they want to hear.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Andrea, before we leave, do you mind sharing any parting words of wisdom and motivation for our audience, the best way that we can connect with you? And then we'll say goodbye.
Oh, absolutely. My parting word would be to reward your failures with success, and don't let your failures be in vain. Let them count for something. And the best way to get in contact with me would be at my website at combatbusinesscoaching.com. At Facebook at Andreas A. Jones, and on Twitter at the Andreas Jones.
Andreas, thank you so much for joining me on Hello Tech Pros today. I really value this personal story that you shared at the beginning. I know like reliving these difficult times can be emotional, it can be challenging, but you know what? There's probably people out here in the audience that can relate to that, who have been through that, and are maybe trying to take the next step in their career, or trying to take the next step in their business, and they're just struggling with how do I get past this horrific, tragic event in my life. So I appreciate you sharing that with me and my audience. It really helps.
That was my pleasure.
You bet. Tech Pros, if you are stuck in business or in life, just think about what Andreas is saying here, man. You got to say yes to opportunity. Opportunities don't happen every day, but when they do, you have to run towards it. You have to take it. You have to take action on it. And if you don't see opportunities, like what Andreas is doing here, you got to go find them. Like you got to send 8, 9, 10 emails in order to get the one person to reply back to you. Don't give up. Don't give up. Just see it through to the end. You've been listening to Andreas Jones, and I'm Chad Bostic. And until next time, take care. The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com/162. Do you use Slack for team communication? Join the Hello Tech Pros Slack channel at hellotechpros.com/Slack. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, subscribe to this channel, and check back tomorrow. This has been Motivation Monday, but tomorrow my featured guest and I talk about productivity. On Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and Sunday, being unplugged. Then next week, we start it all over again with Motivation Monday. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.